I wish he would take his shoes out of the hallway. Why can't they flush the toilet? I hate how she chews. Those are some of the little everyday irritations, everyday frustrations that we have that actually can end up leading to the anger that we regret, the yelling. Looking at them can help you tackle the anger that you regret. You're listening to the Bear in Mind Podcast, episode 163.
A podcast that breaks it down so you can break the cycle for good. Now, your host, Tara Rama, but you can call her T.
Nobody picks up in my family. That is a huge everyday frustration for me because I like things to be put back into their place after you use it. You use the scissors, you put it back into the drawer, the tape, etc. And so nobody does this. Nobody has the same issue with it except for me. Looking at some of those irritations that come up on a daily basis is going to be so useful at getting at the times that we feel an intense amount of anger that usually leads to yelling, that usually leads to behaviors that we don't want to show up as with our loved ones, with our friends. And there is a lot of wisdom. And what we tend to do with those daily situations is that we tend to dismiss them. And so today we're not going to dismiss it. We're going to look at it because they'll give us that wisdom, and dismissing our emotions is something that we're habitually doing, and we want to start to get out of it because that can help us manage our emotions, regulate our emotions, all of those things that we want to do, want to teach our children. So think of something that you find irritating right now about the people that you live with. They don't flush the toilet, they don't pick up, they don't clean up something that's spilled. Whatever it was, it could be the latest thing. And you probably dismissed it. You're like, oh, this is probably made some comment under your breath. And then you dealt with it. And so there is a whole bunch of things that you can do between having that little bit of irritation to taking care of yourself. Because what I used to do was sometimes I would recognize that frustration and then go make somebody else clean it up, something that I was the one that found this a problem, stuff everywhere, and go make them clean it up. And so there's this whole room in between all of that. And so the first thing that we need to do is that little comment we say to ourselves and we brush it off and then we go handle it. We're actually dismissing that anger. We're dismissing that irritation, that frustration because of how we're talking to ourselves. And it's really hard to catch. So in this episode, maybe you can catch it because we tend to say things like, oh, that's so petty. Oh, why am I making a big deal out of it? Oh, they're little. So you don't get upset if they don't pick up after themselves because you're like, oh, they're little. So therefore there's some excuse in there. And in that excuse, the pettiness, the judgments, all of it, you're dismissing it. And it can even be as subtle as like, oh, they're only 2 years old. And they don't have the brain to understand that. But even if they don't have the brain to understand it, we're using it against ourselves to dismiss an emotion. And so in essence, we're shitting on our emotions. We shouldn't feel this way because of the age of our children. We shouldn't feel this way because our partner took out the trash last night. So I'm going to let this go. And I'm not talking about letting the behavior go or not asking for things that you want in a household when you're sharing space. But what I want you to recognize is that you have that right to that everyday irritation. And I still have a little bit of that everyday irritation. I mean, I have a lot of it, but I'm not dismissing it. So it's not becoming this big thing every day for me. I recognize that I allow myself to be irritated when things are not picked up. And right now, I can tell you right now on the dining room table, there are a whole bunch of stuff that is not mine. And I know that before dinner time tonight, it'll still be there and I'm going to be the one to pick it up. And I'm irritated by that. And that's okay. Because what happens when we dismiss it with those excuses, they're this old, they usually help out in this one time. When we dismiss it, it builds, it stays in our body. We have not done anything with the emotion to release it out of our bodies. We've just pushed it down and then gotten on with our day, the next task, picked it up ourselves and gotten it. And it doesn't mean you need to sit and wait and feel it. It's recognizing that voice that comes up when there are those things that happen on a daily basis. And you can even see this at work. Somebody didn't get back to you in an email. All of those situations that you have, allow that irritation, allow that frustration. And one of the techniques, and I've talked about this before, it's something that I was coached on, is whatever it is I find this petty and it's okay. I feel angry about it. It's okay. All of it, just telling yourself at the end of it, it's okay. Now, if it doesn't feel believable that it's okay, whatever that inner critic, the voice that's coming at you, allowing that voice to be there. It's not that the voice is okay, allowing that it's there and you're saying this to yourself and you're recognizing that you're dismissing the irritation through this voice, through this excuse, through all of that kind of noise that comes up to try to avoid anger. Because a lot of us try to avoid anger in these small little ways. And then when it builds and we're under a period of stress, so we can be ill, we can be exhausted, tired, we didn't sleep very well. Maybe a friend treated us not how we wanted to be treated. Maybe something happened when we were in the grocery store, our card didn't work. Then something outside of that maybe doesn't happen on a daily basis, happens. And then we have kind of this underlying rhetoric running around with those everyday frustrations, and then something external happens. And then what we do is when we're pushed over that limit, we then go to yelling. We then go to a behavior that we regret. We go to some sort of built up anger, and then we express it. And then it can kind of look like we're overreacting, because then when we go to express it, it's not so clear what we're actually angry at. And this happens to me a lot. A lot of times I won't allow myself those little everyday frustrations, and then something will happen outside. I mean, outside the home, outside of the everyday frustration. Someone would have said something that I didn't like, or something didn't work and I was trying to do it on the computer and I got really frustrated. And then what comes dinner time is I'm yelling at them to pick up the stuff off the table, because now I need to put the food on the table. And so I'm yelling at them for something that I didn't yell at them the night before. I didn't yell at them 2, 3, a week ago. And I'm yelling at them to do something. And it looks like I'm overreacting at the stuff on the table. And they're kind of like, why are you yelling at us for this? And you'll kind of notice that if your partner's like, why are you overreacting to this thing? It's not the best thing to say. But from their perception, if it's something that you have not addressed time and time again, and then all of a sudden there's this big reaction, there's this big yelling explosiveness to it, and it seems to come from nowhere to them, they're probably telling you you're overreacting, because to them, they're like, this happens every day. And now all of a sudden we're yelling, this is a huge problem, everyone's got to jump in and solve it. And so when this happens, we're aware that we're angry, and we're no longer actually aware of why we're angry. We say it's the stuff on the table, and yes, that's part of it. But all of that built up anger is coming from this place of having those emotions stuck in us. And so if we're irritated with the stuff on the table that haven't picked up, and we say, okay, I'm irritated because my personality is I like to put stuff away. I can say, okay to all of that. I can come from this place of acceptance about being angry at them. I can come from this place of acceptance of, I'm like this. I like things to be put away. That is my preference, and that's okay too. This place of acceptance and this place of more calmness around the situation. And then we can kind of begin to see the other kind of anger that might be bigger out there. It could be a lot of things. It could be that sometimes we explode and we don't get that kind of clarity, but it could be maybe we're frustrated about something in our relationship with our partner. There's been something that's been going on for a while, and there's something like maybe you wish that they didn't look at their phone. That was something that was happening to me. I was like, okay, I don't really like it when you look at your phone, and I want to be listened to. And things like that come up, and then you can open up some of that. It's not real anger, but some of the underneath it that's being masked by some of all of the stuff that's going on the surface level. And then you can find maybe the solution that best suits you and what you want to do when some of the other stuff comes up. And some of that stuff that comes up, it's not very pretty. We might be very frustrated with how we're parenting, and some of that inner critic about us as parents or us as a partner comes up. And right now, with the everyday frustrations that we dismiss, and then if something external happens and then we behave in a way we regret, it's a mask on top of a mask on top of a mask. So there's no clarity. And then we try to go about fixing a problem, and we're not really understanding where some of our frustrations are in our relationships from all of these masks that we've built up. And so I'll recap. Look at something that habitually happens and notice the voice that comes up, how you're dismissing it. And try to come from this place of acceptance. Now, it's not so easy, but even that awareness can bring about that acceptance. You don't have to go to a positive affirmation about it, but even the awareness that you're saying it to yourself and say, oh, this is what my brain is telling me about this, and this is dismissing it. Even that starts to get you closer to acceptance of who you are as a person, of who the other people you are, or the other people that you're with, you're in your relationships, more acceptance of them. And that awareness can help loosen that up. That's all I have for you this week. I'll check back with you next.
Thanks for listening. Listen for a new episode next Tuesday by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Bye for now.